The other day in Opelika, Alabama, they tried to pick a jury for the trial of this man. He's a University of Alabama football fan. He stands accused of criminal mischief and desecrating a venerable object. The venerable object in this case is a pair of live oak trees on the campus of Auburn University nearby. Now, the man accused is an Alabama fan. Auburn and Alabama are rivals. These two oak trees are where generations of Auburn students and fans have gone to celebrate wins by the Auburn football team, particularly those over Alabama. These are tumors trees, they're called, and team loyalty aside, they are pretty much as venerable an object as you could find in the state of Alabama. In the first round of questioning in this case about the desecration of these trees, nearly half the potential jurors in the case said they personally had celebrated something about Auburn under those tumor oaks. So that's what a big deal, what an institution tumors trees are. And it is the cultural importance of those trees to Auburn University and to Alabama as a state that made so surreal this phone call to a local radio show last year. Listen.
The weekend after the Iron Bowl, I went to Auburn, Alabama, because I live 30 miles away, and I poisoned the two tumors trees. I put Spike 80 DF in them.
Did they die?
Do what?
Did they die? They're
not dead yet, but they definitely will die.
A man calling into a radio station saying he killed the tumor oaks with tree poison, with an herbicide. And he did do it, or somebody did it at least. It was not an idle boast. Ever since they learned of the poisoning, Auburn has been trying to save their beloved old trees. We reported a year ago on some of their efforts. They removed and replaced the contaminated soil from around the roots. They added activated liquid charcoal to neutralize the effect of the poison. They coated the leaves of the trees with what's called an anti-transpirant in an effort to keep the trees from drinking in any more poisoned water. This spring, they injected the trees with sugar, trying to feed the trees, since the trees are now too sick to feed themselves. A former producer for this show, Tina Cohn, is on a worldwide walkabout right now, and every once in a while, Tina sends us something from her travels. Her travels took her to Auburn, Alabama, and while she was there, she checked in on the rescue effort for us. The Auburn horticulturalist, Gary Keever, says that the trees have been as low as 5% of their usual foliage. Professor Keever says they're painfully bare. They are in trouble, and if these were any other trees on campus, they'd have been cut down already.
Very likely by this fall, they're going to be if they continue at the rate that they're going, they're going to be at a point where they're aesthetically dead, that we're going to recognize that we need to replace these trees. These two fissures appeared sometime between late fall and midwinter last year, early part of this year. And since then, the bark around these fissures has loosened. You can see the movement in it. This is not normal right here. We've got some decay in the base on this side here. You can see by the darkened wood. We're definitely going to lose some of the bark on this side of the tree, and the decay is not a good sign. These shoots at the base of one of the tumors oaks are called rhizomic shoots, or most people would call them suckers. And these appear healthy, but not all of these rhizomic shoots are. If you move over here, you see classic signs of the herbicide injury, and this is what we saw for much of last year. You see the herbicide oftentimes will accumulate along the margins of the leaves. The leaves will yellow, brown, and then they typically will drop off. We've already lost leaves along some of the stems. Some of these leaves are persisting, but this is very evident of the herbicide injury. We've done many things to try to save these trees, but if you look at the trees, it's very clear that we haven't been completely successful. And based on the decline that we continue to see, it's very likely that these trees are not going to survive in spite of our efforts.
Tree murder. So that's the deal with Auburn's venerable object, tumors trees. Gary Keever says they've shown no sign of responding to these latest treatments, those injections with sugar. He says he's not giving up yet, but he's also too much of a scientist to avoid seeing the obvious outcome here. Meanwhile, the man who was accused of poisoning the trees has now pleaded not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. He told the Auburn student newspaper that the trial was already sapping his strength, that he thought he was going to pass out the whole first morning of jury selection. He said he lost 62 pounds since being arrested, and he's taking 18 kinds of medicine. His wife says he won't make it through the trial without something happening, whatever that means. Not incidentally, in that same Auburn student newspaper article, the paper's reporter says the accused tree killer admitted his crime, that he told the student newspaper reporter that he had, in fact, poisoned the trees. The man's defense says the man did no such thing. admitted no such thing, but the paper is standing by its story and what its reporter says the suspect told them. The defense also says they want this trial moved away from Auburn, Alabama, and they may get their wish. Last month, just 2 days into jury selection, the jury in the case suspended the trial after it interviewed prospective jurors and found at least 10 of them who had seen the front-page Auburn student newspaper story quoting the suspect as saying he had done it, he had poisoned the trees, which his defense attorney says he didn't say. The judge ruled that the jury pool is too tainted to continue and the case may have to leave the whole District of Alabama altogether. The trial is set to start again in the fall. It is a case of tree murder, where it may be impossible to find a jury of 12 people who have not been in love with the murder victim, in love with those trees, or at least who do not already believe in their hearts that they know who killed those trees. This is a sports story. This is an Alabama story. This may be a crazy old guy story or even a crime story. But what it is turning into now is a story of profound human attachment beyond what we usually admit to and beyond what makes sense on paper, which is why I am ending this now with pictures of the Toomer's Oaks in Alabama in much happier times. And with that uplifting story in mind, there's really only one place you can go now. At least we're all going together, though. 3, 2, 1, prison.